I kind of feel that it's worth bringing it up one more time. And it's should the Panthers have traded Brian Burns and DJ Moore? And one of the reasons why I bring this up, shout out to Dean Jones, our guy from catcrave.com. He put out this tweet. And by the way, you might be listening to us on catcrave.com. Shout out to all those listeners. But Dean Jones put on Twitter, the Panthers repeatedly turned down this for Brian Burns and DJ Moore. If we would have traded them, we would have received a 2023 first round pick, potential top 10 from the Green Bay Packers, 2024 first round pick, 2025 first round pick, and a 2023 second round pick. Dean says that's a big call. Not sure I'd have done the same given their current state. And I wanted to pose that question to you boys. Knowing what happened after Cincinnati, just being railroaded by Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Joe Mixon, did the Panthers make a mistake by not getting that kind of draft compensation for DJ Moore, for Brian Burns, or ultimately are you happy they're still going to be wearing those black and blue helmets this Thursday night?
In hindsight, yes, it was a mistake. Where we were at that moment, I would say no. They made the right decision. I think we even all came on here after that game and said they made the right decision. It's just a matter of now we see what the other, we see the other side now. Right. Had we won those games and we had gotten rid of them, we probably would still be praising it because we say, oh, we don't need them. But we would be wondering, man, can you imagine what we'd be like next year with, these guys with how we're playing right now? I mean, it's always going to be like that. We react to what's happening in the moment. So I think that, like I said, in hindsight, yes, it was a bad decision. We should have got rid of them. But 2 weeks ago, we were talking about not tanking and winning the division. So it's hard to say, really.
Yeah, no. We missed the opportunity on Brian Burns. Trading DJ Moore would be a mistake. The reason being is we just re-signed DJ Moore. He's got guaranteed money. That money doesn't move with the trade. You're going to get saddled with a bunch of dead money that's going to ruin any cap opportunity you have. And DJ Moore is a young player. Dude, how old is he? Right now, he is... Somebody look up how old. He's like... I mean, he came into the league at 20, I think. He might only be 24.
DJ Moore or Burns?
Burns. Both of them are pretty young. I'm pretty sure that DJ Moore is younger, though. Wide receiver, though, is that it's the contract that determines this when it comes to DJ Moore. And while you could get maybe a top 10 pick.
24 years old.
24, yeah. I mean, so he's got 6 years of being a hardcore receiver. If you think about guys going to their early 30s as a receiver, 30 years old, it's just really the money you would lose. Like, yes, you get a top 10 draft pick. So on a draft basis for DJ Moore in a rebuild potential process, that works. Brian Burns, we should have done it. 2 firsts and a second. Here's the thing: is Brian Burns is a good player. I don't know if he's great. And the only thing I could say is this: you now have to re-sign Brian Burns. You have to extend him, which I was open to doing before we started this season. I really wanted to do it before this season started. Yeah. But here's the problem: is Brian Burns is a player that's going to need another player with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. He's not like a Julius Pepper. And I only know, man, I'm always going to go to Pep because he's my dude. Right. Like but like, I'm trying to think of an all around defensive end, like the Bosa's or something, where you can put you can put a Charles Johnson on the other side, but they don't have to be a dominant player. Right. Right. And I feel like Brian Burns is a guy that would be awesome with a dominant player.
Yeah. And by the way, that's what the Rams, that's the reason why they wanted him so bad and why they were willing to give up that kind of haul for Brian Burns. Because if you do put him on a team like the Rams or with the defensive line and Aaron Donald, or on a team like Philadelphia, which was also rumored earlier on, yeah, all of a sudden that guy goes from a good player to a great player in no time.
He's
So
not like Bosa though from the 49ers. He's not
yeah,
in
and he's
that.
built different.
That's a grade above him.
He
And I'm not
used to be at
saying
that level.
he's a top 10 defensive end. Maybe he might be like a 8 to 12 guy in this league or a 10 to 15 guy. But I don't think he's a top 5 defensive end in this league. And here's the only thing that I'm worried about, that the Panthers, now that they have to re-sign him, or at least I think they do,
Yeah,
is like, do you get into a contract with a guy that ultimately is a little rich for the type of player he is? Now, here's the good news about this. The best reason about keeping both of these guys, is you're going to get a top 5 pick anyway this year. And these are some futures. The futures are not going to help the team in the immediacy. Even if you went and got a top defensive end next year, they're going to take time to develop. You're actually hitting Brian Burns in his ultimate prime as a player, and you have already invested in the learning curve. Like, you don't want to throw him out now when you invested in the time where he was a pretty good player, and now he could step into being a top tier player in the league. And then the other thing is this defense right now is that it's got some young pieces on it. But like, if you start just retooling young, is that like this team could go from a somewhat talented team that could be quickly on the rebuild, kind of like a Cincinnati, like a turnaround, or I'm trying to think of another team that's kind of turned it around quickly, or we could find ourselves in a Jacksonville situation or a Lions situation where this rebuild goes on for a decade.
Yeah, I mean, there are teams that pick at the top of the draft that the very next year they were able to turn it around. The Giants,
the Jaguars this year are going to be the Texans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the Giants.
Oh, you mean the turnaround? I'm sorry, I thought you meant I'm
talking about
back
teams
in the top 5
that
again.
were picking in the top 5 and then turned around in the very next year and ended up becoming a good team. Hell, right now the Jets are 5-3. I mean, the Giants are a good team. By the way, the 49ers, they had a top 5 pick for a bunch of years in a row, granted. But then when they picked Bosa the very next year, they were in the playoffs. They were going to the Super Bowl. So, it didn't have to take so long. And I've said this before. I'm a firm believer that part of the reason why they are still on this team is because David Tepper is going to go after a big-time coach. Hold on. David Tepper is going to go for a big-time coaching hire at the end of this season. And I'm a firm believer that you're going to need to offer that coach more than just draft picks to convince them to come here and build this football team around players like DJ Moore, like Brian Burns, like Jeremy Chin, like J.C. Horn, and Kema Kwanu. Those players are going to be who you build your team around from here on out. And after that McCaffrey trade, now we have all of those later rounds that we had given up for quarterbacks like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. I know right now it's very easy to say we should have taken those offers, but ultimately, even though those were good picks, I think we made the right move.
If this was a top 10 pick for Brian Burns, would you have next year or in this draft coming up, would you have done it? You get that person on a 5-year contract.
And it was this year and next
say
year?
Like we get, just say we get one,
23
say the
and
offer,
24, right?
No, just say I gave you one first-round pick, and now you were guaranteed it was a top 10 pick in the 2023 draft. Would you take it for Brian Burns?
No, not unless I have 2.
Wow.
I would need that.
I would because you get 5 years out of him.
Give me the first round this year and the year after, and maybe. Yeah.
I disagree. So what I think you should have done is taken these picks, you take the first next year, the futures, and you combine them all and trade up and get into the top 10. You know what I'm saying? And then you pick your quarterback at 3. You pick
That's easier said than done, though,
I don't
man.
think so. I think that if you told somebody who was trying to trade back that you would give them a first 2 years in a row and a second, you could take those 3 picks and turn it into a first, a top 10 pick. I believe you could. So that's the thing is that it does sound like a future thing, but like you could have parlayed it. And really now it's going to be about the money. And the real time will tell you this is that if somehow Brian Burns is not a Carolina Panther in 2 years, then you tell me what you think about this.
Oh, that's a bad look. That is the ultimate egg on their face move. If you let Brian Burns walk because you're not willing to pay him the money that him and his agent,
or what if he just doesn't take it? What if he doesn't take it?
Does it Julius Peppers and says, "Nah, I'll go somewhere else"?
Well, how about this? Is that what if are you willing to reset the market for him?
No, man.
Right. And so what if he says this? What if he says this is what it's going to take to keep me in Carolina? And you go, whoa, that's a tad rich. And then he says, well, you know what? I can't get that from pick a team who's on the cusp of being like from the Kansas City Chiefs, but I can get closer to the range that you're telling me. Why would he want to be here? What if he just doesn't? That they better have an open dialogue right now with his fucking agent. In fact, if I don't even see the extension by the end of this season, almost, I'm starting to get nervous.
Right.
I don't even want it to go that farther. And no, I don't want to draft another YGM. I don't want to draft a second round defensive end. What I'm saying is this: if you could take 3 picks and parlay them into, if we picked at 1 and 7 this year, and you had both of those players for 5 years,
right?
Also, I think part of the allure of this is that the Panthers have never had multiple first-round picks. To actually see what Fitterer would do in a full-on build where everyone knows you're probably drafting a quarterback, everyone knows that you're probably going to draft another defensive end, all these other players. Like the Panthers have never been in that situation, and all the draft nicks find players that they fall in love with, and they go, yeah, I want that dude and that dude and that dude. So, again, we're not playing Madden here.
Well, a lot. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the argument against that, and I understand, is Scott Fitterer looked at who those offers were from. And sure, the Green Bay one right now looks like it is going to be a high draft pick.
Right.
By the end of the year, that could change. I have a hard time looking at Aaron Rodgers and thinking that's going to be that bad of a situation. Their defense has been much more improved this year. So,
but they just lost what's
his face?
Ray, it starts with a G or something.
Yeah, Rashad Gary or something like that. But so I mean, but if I look at the other side of this and I look at the Rams offer for Brian Burns, Scott Fitterer has a point. Like he's looking at that as these guys are going to be typically drafting pretty late in the first round. And to have one in 2024 and one in 2025, it's so far away for it to be a later round pick. It just doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense. And so I understand maybe turning that down. I know a lot of people are like, well, first round pick's the first round pick.
True,
well, late first round pick is also very close to being a second round pick. And the only first round pick that we've picked that late, and it's worked out pretty well, is probably DJ Moore. Brian
Burns was a late first round pick.
No, Brian Burns.
Yeah, he was
early.
16.
I know, but that's not what I'm talking about. Late.
DJ Moore and him were about close. Maybe DJ was like 19 or 20.
Was he? I thought we were picking like 20, 22 or 23 or something like that.
For DJ, yeah, but for Brian, that was
not top 15 then.
16th pick. And remember, Nova Black called in from the stadium and announced that pick at Panther Stadium.
That's medium first round. I'm talking about like they look at the Rams as being late first round. So you're talking 25, 26, 27. And by that point, like it's almost second round. I mean, again, you're not getting a horrendous capital. I mean, first round is a first round. I'll be the first to say that. But the part of it that I have a hard time arguing for is again, 2024, 2025.
And he's a young player. He's a young player. But he is at the back end of his contract, his rookie contract.
He is, but he's still got this year and his 5th-year option, and so we have some time to work.
One more year, yeah. I think this is the way I look at it, though, with the McCaffrey stuff. Like, you think of like, oh, we could have gotten whatever, like.
Right.
I almost would rather have. When I see all these picks, when I see like 2 seconds and this and that, I don't think of them like, oh, we're gonna add 2 YGMs.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to take all of these picks and smush them up and move to get DJ.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to move from, like, I would rather give you 2/3 in a second and like put me in the top 25 and just get one player that I'm going to have. So like, that's the way I understand. Like, I think you guys are right. I think there's interesting parts about it. I don't think the DJ Moore one ultimately makes sense. And have you seen how relaxed DJ Moore has been? This dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's almost like starting to get annoying. And what I mean, it's not just like him. It's the ping pong ball in the background. Ping, 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 ping. And they asked him, this is a good segue, because they were asking him questions about the blackout this week, mainly the black helmets, and if he liked it. And he's like this. It's just like, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, he's always been like that, though. Like, it's not more, but like, the thing is, we saw the most emotion out of him ever when we were playing that Atlanta game. That's the most emotion that I've ever seen DJ Moore.
Let's look at this clip, Cody. Let's look at this.
Prefer red over the silver? They good for Thursday night, It's a switch up. Maybe next year we could get white ones, white and blue. That'd be dope. But I'm rocking with the black ones right now.
Man, look, Ty, that's a man that has been paid. Okay.
Yes, yeah,
like
he's the safest dude on the roster, bro. He is the safest guy on the roster. Yeah. They did not trade him for potentially a top 10 pick. He got paid. He's going to be there. It don't matter who your coach is, who the GM is. This mug is the safe. Name me one player on this roster who has a safer position on the Carolina Panthers than DJ Moore. Name it.
Maybe it'd have to be someone on their rookie contract. No one.
Horn? No.
Yeah, they're not going to trade away Horn or Icky. So, I'd say
okay, maybe Icky. But no, Horn has still got a lot to prove with his health and some different things.
No,
like, DJ is proven.
DJ is safe as it comes. Absolutely.
I want you guys listening. The number's 252-228-5098. I want you guys to call in and tell me, who do you think has a safe